So we're on to the box office top 10. This week, UK number 10, US number 9, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
I'm kind of surprised by how sniffy many of the reviews were. I mean, it is what it is. A lot of people got off their bike about, well, it's so old-fashioned. So it's Indiana Jones. It has a lot of Toby Jones, and it has Toby Jones fighting on a train. I actually didn't think the de-aging stuff was bad. Simon wasn't as, but it's...
I thought it was pretty good.
It's fine.
I thought it was pretty good. I think the only thing that I did feel with it... Yeah, I think the Indiana Jones films that have worked best are 1 and 3. And in both occasions, they were sort of religious relics that had some sort of power. Once you kind of drift away from that and you can time travel, I think it's not an Indiana Jones film anymore.
So 3 is Last Crusade, right?
Last Crusade, which is my favourite.
Yes, which is lovely because of the relationship between them, and that works really well.
And it's funny, and the action sequences are good. And I like James Mangold as a director very much. You know, everything from Copland to Logan.
Well, Heavy, of course, which actually is a really great film.
Terrific director. But I think that Spielberg films, in their action, have a certain kind of wit. And there was a certain wit in the action that was missing in this. They were all very clever, but there was just a lack of wit in it.
Well, it also didn't help that it opened back-to-back with Mission Impossible, in which you go, that's... you want the exciting action sequence on a train? It's that one.
I have to say, the combination of kind of Indiana Jones and Mission Impossible, you have leading actors whose combined age is about 140, and they both managed to combine to make me feel inadequate.
Yes, that is what they're there for.
Oh,
I think if Tom Cruise isn't there to make everyone feel inadequate, I don't know what he's there for.
Excellent. At UK number 9, US number 8 is Talk to Me,
which I think's really interesting. The thing I like about it is that it takes a sort of a bunch of ideas that you've seen done before. I mean, it's kind of on one level like Evil Dead for the Snapchat generation, but it's got it sets out its parameters quite clearly, which is that basically kids are using demonic possession as a way to get high. And a lot of it is about addiction, and a lot of it is, it has a kind of real world grounding, but it's a fantastical story. And it's just very, very efficiently played. So it's not loud, quite loud jump scares, although there are a few jumps in it. But it's intelligent because it's about something, but the mechanics of the horror are done very well. So I think, what it's really about is about how difficult it is to be an adolescent, how difficult it is to find your identity in the world, and the issues of addiction. But it's telling that story through a teenage party trick, which is that you hold this mummified hand and you become possessed by a spirit, but only for 90 seconds, unless you don't let go of the hand. You go, okay, that's a really smart idea. Good. And they do it really well.
At number 8 in the UK, not charted in the US, is Rocky or Rani Ki Prem Kahani.
Now, this is Hindi language rom-com family drama. I haven't seen it because I've been off for the last 2 weeks. I don't think it was press screened anyway, because most of those movies don't tend to get press screens in advance. So if anyone has seen it, please let us know.
Please let us know. The translation for that, since I'm here and I can do this kind of stuff, is Rocky and Rani's love story.
Very good.
That's what it means.
Do you speak fluent? Are you fluent Hindi?
In Hindi?
Yeah.
Yes. I can read and write.
Oh, well.
And Punjabi.
How many languages do you speak?
I can speak English. Does that count? I can do different accents. Do they count as languages?
No, that's not.
Hindi, Punjabi, a little bit of French, which I've been learning from an app for the past year, and a little bit of German that I remember from my school.
Wow.
And then just Klingon. And so it's kind of and a whole bunch that I just make up.
I speak one language. That's it.
Which one? Excellent. At UK
Try
number
the
7.
Tip your waitress.
UK number 7, US not charted, is Joyride.
Which, is kind of fun, a little bit, a lot of vom, a lot of gross out, but some sort of sharp observations on identity. Yeah, perfectly fun.
I have an email from Lee, and this says, Dear Joy and Joyful, just out my local picture house in Showbiz North London of Joyride. What a glorious, raucous and very funny exhibition of friendship and narcotics. It all screamed through at a fine pace. Even the stuff that didn't always worked for the bigger picture. The observations and wit from the script of abiding friendship and growing up and comprehending a 90 to 99% white environment were easy to relate to, even as, in my case, a Korean, British and Aussie male adoptee growing up in Essex in the early 80s.
Right.
Of the 4 or 5 other patrons, I couldn't help but notice, I blame Essex, I was the only Asian in the house. It was the same for a packed art house screening of Parasite too. Anyway, it probably says more about the fact that it was a Monday at 1 o'clock in Crouch End than any race relations study. Down with the shrill haters, up with the relaxed presence and presentation evidenced by your friendship. Love and Lolo Lee. That's your and Simon's friendship, I think, really.
But it could also be yours and mine.
Well, that's nice. UK number 6 and US number 10 is Elemental.
Which I think, it was funny, I don't know whether you heard Simon's interview with the director. But
I did. Very moving.
Yes. And my view of the film has been irrevocably changed by hearing the director interviewed. So I no longer know whether I'm talking about the film or the interview. When I saw the film, I thought, it's okay, I don't quite get the elements thing. And then I heard his interview with Simon, and suddenly it was like, oh, actually, this seems much more profound to me now. So it was a perfect case of an interview actually made the film better for me.
So UK number 5, US number 7, Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning, Part 1. How's your hat?
I would have, yeah. I would have, I told you I had an email from, I think it was one of the editors or something, asked whether they could have that framed. I have kept that notebook. It's so exciting. And I know the plot doesn't make any sense. It doesn't matter. It is so exciting. It's the kind of movie in which you can put a face mask on and suddenly the eyes match up and the teeth match up and your height changes and everything, fine, it's Mission, but the action sequences are just, it's Buster Keaton level of wow, isn't it? It's just...
Yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. And it is a thrill ride. But also, and Simon Pegg's a friend of mine, and I'm just really proud and pleased of Simon's character's development from, slightly comedy sidekick in his first appearance and now being a fully fledged member of the team.
Yeah.
And he's got great comic timing and he's a good actor. And now he's kind of running around as well.
And you know that he said that when he was doing the stuff when Tom Cruise is in the parachute and he's talking to them and thing, the dialogue is actually Tom Cruise in the parachute. He said because Tom insisted on that was, it won't work otherwise. Okay, so you've got to drive the bike off the cliff again?
Yeah, I know. You were doing it 6 times in a day?
6 times. The first time he thought he let go of the bike a bit late.
I know, it's nuts. Are you a little surprised that it has perhaps underperformed at the box office?
Has it underperformed?
I think it has a bit.
Really?
Yeah, I think that we haven't got to the totals yet, but I think that the last 2 Mission Impossibles did better, box office wise.
Really? Okay, well,
I think so.
I mean, we did have an email from somebody who said that they were bored by it.
Really?
Yeah, no, I know. My reaction is the same. I mean, obviously, everybody's response is valid and, whatever, because
sure.
all responses are completely subjective. But I did think Tom Cruise threw himself off the side of a mountain on a bike 6 times. And the thing with the train at the end, there's the carriage, and then there's the carriage, and then there's the carriage, and then there's the other carriage, and then there's the other carriage. Bored?
Yeah.
It's
what more does he need to do?
Is Russell Crowe in Gladiator? Are you not entertained?
He should have held onto that bike a little longer, just a little longer. UK number 4, US number 4 is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
I haven't seen this. I was off, and I confess that I didn't rush to see it. I will catch up with it, but the thing is worth the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. Did you know that when it came out, it was 1990, whatever, was the most successful independent movie of all time?
I did not know that.
Isn't that interesting?
Wow.
Took a huge amount, it cost nothing at all, but it was, and people go, it wasn't independent. You go, no, it was independent outside the studio system. It was the most successful independent movie of all time.
That wasn't animation, was it?
No, that was guys in rubber suits. Guys in rubber suits.
Yeah,
it was that movie.
It sells. UK number 3, US number 2, The Meg 2.
So currently, according to just Screen International today, number 1 in the global box office ahead of Barbie. We will do a full review later on in the show because it wasn't reviewed last week. I think I'm out of step with critics, but I think I'm in step with the audience.
We have a correspondence on that, so we'll include that later. We'll include that later. UK number 2, US number 3 is Oppenheimer.
There's been so much discussion about this. We had some of it at your house last night with Child 2. And it's fascinating to hear what people take from it. The thing that everyone's agreed on is that Cillian Murphy is astonishing. If he doesn't get Oscar nominated, well, I mean, I know the Oscars from Oscar, but he deserves, because it's extraordinary. I think the most remarkable thing about the film is using the IMAX format to do close face stuff. Because when you think of IMAX, you think of landscapes, you think of huge explosions, you think of all the spectacle. The most interesting thing about Oppenheimer is that they've turned the face and his face into a spectacle, and there are very few people who could get away with that level of intent. I mean, his face is the size of a house. I have some reservations, but I still feel I've only seen it the once, and it felt slightly cold to me. But that may be me. You've seen it, right?
Yeah, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was incredibly absorbing. I mean, it's a 3-hour courtroom drama, really, with some bits kind of added in. But I think in customary style, I think Christopher Nolan does something different with that courtroom format. In terms of time, in terms of action, in terms of sound, particularly, which I thought was brilliant. I did and I did love it. I did enjoy it. I thought Robert Downey Jr. was brilliant in it as well. Always great to see Tom Conti, because the last time I saw him was in Paddington, being attacked and having his head hair shaved off by Paddington. But one of the two things I wanted to mention, one is I don't know if you think this, I thought there was unnecessary nudity.
Yes, it is. As I'm thinking about it, I'm trying to remember previous Chris Nolan sex scenes, and I can't. And I do think that the sequence in which they're in the courtroom, she imagines, the lover.
Florence Pugh.
Yeah, you go. Really?
I mean,
I kind of know that already. I'm not sure that that's the way to do that.
It seemed a little misplaced to me, actually. And the other thing I just wanted to flag up.
Yeah, you raised something last night which I had never heard of, which was...
So this was in the news when Oppenheimer was released in India, which is that there is a scene where, Oppenheimer's famous quote, which is, "I am become death, destroyer of worlds," which is a line from the Bhagavad Gita, which is a Hindu holy book. And in India, they had... there were protests because the utteration of that phrase is used sort of during a sex scene.
Yes, because Florence Pugh finds it in a book.
Yes, and so where it stands in the film is that she finds it in a book. She says, "Oh, look, there's a book. What's this?" He says Sanskrit. Yeah. She goes, "You can read it. Read that line," and he translates it to his famous quote. And initially, I just thought, I'm not sort of prudish about these things, but I thought, it's a film. You kind of juxtapose this, that, and the other. And when I saw the film, I thought, do you know what? I mean, I kind of get the complaint, because to me, that famous quote is powerful because it was a reaction to seeing the bomb go off. In the film, it's done as I'm learning Sanskrit. And we as the audience are supposed to know that's his famous line that he says after the bomb went off. He doesn't say it then, it's not repeated, and it just sits at this moment of nookie, of kind of like intense nookie. And so it felt...
For those listeners who weren't alive in the 1970s, nookie is sex.
It can be. It could be heavy petting.
It's just a word that has fallen out of currency.
It's like...
I'm glad that you're bringing it back.
I like nookie. I mean, I'll put it out there.
Step away. No, but it was a fascinating point, because it had not even occurred to me. And then when you said it, I was surprised that it hadn't occurred to me. It was like I was suffering from a cultural blind spot that I didn't even notice it.
No, well, it was kind of because I'd sort of read about the protests and stuff, but it would have struck me as odd anyway, because the nudity struck me as odd, because it didn't really kind of help or aid the story in any way, or the characters. If that had been shot differently, I wouldn't have thought, well, what that needed was a nookie scene, Oppenheimer. It would have been great. 4 out of 5, 5 if it had the nookie scene. And so, anyway, that's just that anyway.
There was a guy called Craig Hasoda who some time ago wrote a book called The Bare Facts Video Guide, Where to Find Your Favourite Film Actors Naked on Film. And it was literally just a list of, like, the title, and it went 53 minutes, left buttock.
No, really?
Literally.
Did anyone buy that? I mean,
it was a cultural thing.
Really? It
was literally a previous century.
I have a no nudity clause in all my contracts. Yeah, insisted upon by the filmmakers. It's not might be.
Tell him to keep his clothes on.
So we'll have some. There's a couple of bits of correspondence about Oppenheimer, which we'll get to in take 2. Excellent. But more importantly, UK number 1, US number 1 is Barbie.
Well, I reviewed it. I loved it. I've seen it twice.
We have an email here which says, "Hi Barbie," and "Hi Barbie, MTL FTE grade 3 violin." At the risk of contradicting myself, I wanted to add to the litany of comments that have been written about the Barbie movie.
Yeah.
I went to see it over the opening weekend, and quite frankly, I loved it.
Excellent.
It was joyful, it was smart, it was funny, and it was packed out. I left with a spring in my flat feet after seeing a blockbuster end with a joke about a very female rite of passage. What has left me really disappointed over the last few weeks is the huge number of articles written about how Barbie is not feminist enough, or the lack of diversity of body shape within the Kens in the film. Complaints that this movie is being held as a feminist masterpiece, but it's just a vehicle for capitalism, and maybe Gerwig isn't the progressive she claimed to be. Quite frankly, it boils my blood. This is the biggest box office success by an original film written and directed by a woman ever, and all we can do is criticize it for not being feminist enough. I'm reminded of Gloria's rant in the movie of the inherent contradictions of trying to exist as a woman within the patriarchy. But somehow the writers of these articles didn't think about this and how they were precisely playing into this trope that nothing we do is ever enough. You know what Barbie is? It's a wonderful, joyful, blockbuster movie which by some miracle also gets to be feminist and full of jokes that would have been written off as not mainstream enough because they're about the female experience just a few years ago. Gerwig did films like Lady Bird and Little Women, which were thoughtful and dramatic films about the female experience, acted amazingly and brilliantly written and directed. And she did not get the recognition she deserved. She has now written and directed one of the biggest box office successes of recent years, yet we still want to tear her down for not being feminist enough. I can't help but think of all the wonderful, fun and action-packed movies directed by men that were never subjected to this level of scrutiny. Christopher Nolan can write and direct lots of films of white men talking to other white men, and he is the visionary. Seriously, I want to go and live in Barbie land for all its flaws. Down with the patriarchy, up with women supporting women, Susie.
Susie, that is absolutely on the nail. Nail, hammer, hit, whatever the thing is. I mean, I always remember the old analogy, as somebody who's a, bleeding heart lefty, I am. Everybody always said, the right don't have to fight the left, just let the left fight itself. And it's like, yeah, for heaven's sake, it's a Barbie movie that actually owes a debt to Todd Haynes' Superstar, the Karen Carpenter story. That is wildly subversive, and it's really good fun.
Well, while we go and play guitar at someone,
that's always my favourite line in the film.
Well, let's have a
Sit
break.
there while I play guitar at you.
Thanks very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as we enjoyed making it. While you're here, check out all the other videos because they're cool too, aren't they?
Yeah, and if you want to keep up to date with everything Kermode and Mayo's take, then check out our social channels.
I mean, why wouldn't you?
I mean, I would.
There you
I
go.
have done.
Excellent.